What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Talking Jets with Tigo. My name is Tigo, and round two of recording this, and you can see above me, very special guest. Not the first time on the channel, because you've been on the channel when we've gone live before, but first time in a video, Jeremy, Jets Chaos. Welcome to the channel.
What's up? It's good to be here on this channel. It's nice and cool in here. You have a great calm feel.
Yeah, I try to, cool, calm vibes. Kind of the opposite of the Wacky Wednesday show that we get going on over on your channel, which is always super fun. But today, we're not here for a live show, which is normally what we tend to do together. Today, we're here to do a full first round mock draft. Obviously, we know that the draft is coming and shortly upon us. This month, we're already in April. How crazy is that? But we're less than 4 weeks away from Joe Douglas, as I would say, probably sprinting to the podium at 13 for a player. And you guys know how this works. Jeremy is going to have all of the odd picks so that he can do the 13th overall pick. You guys are tired of seeing me do Jets drafts, so I want to have our guests have their takes on the draft. I'm going to handle all of the even picks, and if at any point in time there is a trade that wants to be done, if you own that pick, so for example, if Jeremy wants the Cardinals trading up to number 1 with the Panthers, he can do that. If that's what he thinks is going to happen, he can so totally do that. But if he's sitting there at 3 and he wants the Colts to trade up, that is on me to decide on whether or not I believe the Colts are going to come up. But enough talking. Let's just hop right into the draft. The first pick of the draft, the Carolina Panthers are on the clock. Jeremy, what do you think the Carolina Panthers are going to do? What would you do if you're the Carolina Panthers? We obviously know that they traded up that massive haul to come up to 1. It seems like they're coming up for a quarterback. Which quarterback do you think they're coming up for?
Uh, it's actually very interesting when you don't care as much because it's not your team. You don't put as much thought into it. But I will say I think that they traded up for CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I think that seems to be the consensus of all of the draft pundits and evaluators and everything like that. I think when you look at the quarterbacks in this draft, all 4 of them, and I'm really high on all of them. If you're going to take and make a trade up for a guy that you want to make sure is going to hit, CJ Stroud seems to be that guy. The guy that is almost guaranteed to work. He has the highest floor, the lowest ceiling. He's never going to be a superstar in the NFL, or at least that's what he projects as, that he's not going to be a superstar. He may take a leap at the next level. You never know. But that being said, you don't need a superstar to win games. How often did we talk about last year that if we just had middle of the pack quarterback play, we would have walked away with, probably 11 wins last year if we had a middle of the pack quarterback. So the Houston Texans are on the clock at number 2. And I'm going to follow in your suit. I'm going to take a quarterback. Now, this is not the quarterback that I would take. I don't like this pick. I cannot trust a quarterback that's this small. And I'm not talking about height. I'm talking about size. But all signs are pointing towards the Houston Texans taking Bryce Young at number 2. And so that's the pick that I'm going to make, is the Alabama quarterback at number 2.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Very realistic of what would happen.
Yeah. You're on the clock at number 3 with the Arizona Cardinals. And this is the first opportunity in this draft for a trade up. And what is that? Oh my gosh. Is your phone ringing? The Indianapolis Colts are calling, Jeremy.
Uh-huh.
And they want to trade up 1 spot. And they want to go from 4 to 3.
I'm going to be really interested in a trade like that, and I'm going to tell you why. Because as the GM of Arizona right now, I don't care that Indianapolis wants to come up and get a quarterback. I think that I'm going to take advantage of all these teams fighting to come up. Indianapolis is a great trade partner for me if they give a compatible offer, because I don't lose anything. I still get the same player that I'm going to choose anyway, because I have no intention of taking a quarterback here.
Absolutely. So here's the deal. The Indianapolis Colts are offering up the number 4 pick, which is worth 1,800 points, and the number 3 pick is worth 2,200. I need to make up about a couple hundred points. So to move up one spot, I am also willing to not only give up the number 4 pick, but I'm willing to give up 35, which is worth about 550 points, and a third round next year. Are you comfortable with this trade, or do you have a counteroffer?
No, that's actually, I think, a wonderful opportunity for Arizona. They're going to gain a second round pick here. I'm going to get myself pick 35, and I'm going to start building up next year. Arizona's got problems,
Yes.
as an organization. It's bad enough they're stuck in the Kyle Murray contract, which I think is one of the worst contracts in the NFL right now. They've got to build everything else up. So whether they're stuck with Murray or whether they're when they eventually get out of that mess, they've got to have the strongest team possible. And that, again, I lose nothing by going back a spot. I gain a second round pick. I get a third round for next year. It's a beautiful deal for Arizona. So I with open arms, glad to have a trade partner.
Fantastic. So the Indianapolis Colts are now on 3, and this is the way that it works, Jeremy. Now that the Indianapolis Colts are 3, you're picking for Indianapolis. So they came up, and it was my trade that I came up with. But who do you think I came up for? It is your decision. They came up for a quarterback. What quarterback are they coming up to take at 3?
Uh I think that they let me look at the players here. I'm learning this interface a little bit better. So the question is did they come up for Will Levis or did they come up for Anthony Richardson? I'm going to say that the Indianapolis Colts made that deal and they want to go for the big, stronger athlete. They're excited about the raw potential of Anthony Richardson.
I totally agree. I think this makes a ton of sense. I think this is exactly why they came up. Remember that Indianapolis also hired the offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, Joe Steichen, or whatever his first name is. And they ran a very RPO heavy scheme to make up for the fact that Jalen Hurts wasn't necessarily super polished as a passer and gave him a ton of reps and ability there. And coming up to just guarantee your guy, make sure you get your guy in a division where you can be competitive. The Tennessee Titans aren't as scary as they were before. The Texans are garbage. Jacksonville's on the come up. But Indianapolis, with a guy and an athlete like Anthony Richardson, is not that far away. The Arizona Cardinals are here at 4. And I think that they are jumping with joy. Not only did they get, like you said, an additional second round pick this year so that they're going to have back-to-back second round picks at 34 and 35, allowing them to trade back again and get more assets, double down, and get mid-talents. They still get the guy that they were going to take at 3 anyway. It literally doesn't change anything. So at number 4, I'm going to take the Alabama edge, Will Anderson Jr. I just think it makes a ton of sense. I normally would have had Jalen Carter penciled in here, but I don't know if Arizona is going to take the risk on a player that has that kind of, let's say baggage is the right word right now with him. So I'm taking Will Anderson. The Seattle Seahawks are up at number 5 with the Denver pick, which is insane. Imagine picking in the top 10 and making the playoffs, and a couple of teams are doing it this year. Where are the Seahawks going?
Well, the Seahawks are looking over and kind of a little taking a deep breath out because they wanted Will Anderson for sure. I think with the questions of Jalen Carter and just as a positional thing, I think there's something always more attractive, as good as Jalen Carter is, about edge. Mm-hmm. And Will Anderson, even last year, would have went top 10 if he would have came out last year. This guy is, he's a freak, and so they're recovering. A little disappointed that they didn't have the opportunity to grab Will Anderson, but I think Seattle comes in and they're not buying all this nonsense. They're taking Jalen Carter here. They're going to take the best player there. Pete Carroll is that kind of coach. He's not worried about Jalen Carter because he can coach anybody, and Jalen Carter is no exception to that. And Seattle will be a whole lot better on defense with this freak Jalen Carter.
I agree 100%. I thought Jalen Carter should be already in Seattle. Like, just move to Seattle. If there's any organization that has built up enough goodwill outside of the Jamal Adams trade with their fan base and has a coach and a GM in lockstep that could take a guy who might be a problem, like a character-wise, and can fix that, Seattle is it. And just like you said, I believe in Pete Carroll to work on and be able to turn Jalen Carter around, and passing up on a guy who is the only, in my mind, the only elite prospect in this draft. Just doesn't make sense, especially when it's at a massive position of need. They did just lose Puna. Like, they just lost. It makes a ton of sense. The Lions are here at 6, and I'm going to try to do something a little bit different. I've had this pick a couple of times, and I've talked about this pick before and about how, I'm gonna take the cornerback or the this or take the defensive line, and you know what? A lot of that makes sense, but I'm gonna try to do something a little bit different in a division where they are so close to being able to compete. We know that they just, they still have DeAndre Swift. You've got Jared Goff, and he is a limited quarterback. So I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to get another weapon on offense here. I'm going to take the first wide receiver off the board, and I'm going to take Jackson Smith-Njigba here. The Lions have 2 picks in the first round. They have a top 10 pick with the number 6 pick that they got from LA for the Stafford trade. You're going to be able to shore up that defense later in the draft. What have we said about this draft, Jeremy? It is super deep where? At edge, at corner, at those positions. And those are the positions that they need. And so on defense, you're going to get a really solid guy at 18. I'm going to take the wide receiver, and the first wide receiver is off the board. Jackson Smith-Njigba, the number 6 pick in this year's draft.
Well, they will become absolutely terrifying with if the Jigaba works out, because they got another kid last year who was starting to come on at the end, in Jameson Williams, and they already have St. Brown. So I mean, it'd be getting very exciting in Detroit.
And that's the whole point, is the Bengals model, right? The Bengals didn't care that they had T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. They had problems on the offensive line. They still went out and got Jamar Chase because they had Joe Mixon, and they just have one of the most lethal offenses in the NFL. Same concept. Put a hat on a hat. Turn what is a strength into a superpower. And if you've got St. Brown and Williams coming back at full speed and full health, you put St. Brown and Williams on the outside with JSN in the slot, and you've got one of the most lethal passing games. And in a weak NFC, go make a run. Go for it.
Yep. Going to be hard to match up against that wide receiver room for sure.
Yep. Oakland is on the clock at 7, and where do you think they're going to go?
Well, this might be controversial. I don't know. I feel when I looked at the details of the Jimmy G contract, a lot of people think, oh, well, they're done at quarterback, and I tend to disagree. Yep. The contract lets them out after a year.
Yep.
And I think that the Raiders, I think they want a long-term solution at quarterback. If this coach is going to make a run to, for the long term and build up this team, you can tell he's not impatient. He didn't do what was best for the immediate future, obviously, since he's taken over. He's trying to build and make it his team. I think he's got his temporary fill-in Jimmy G. I think that's what Jimmy G's career is going to be. He's going to be one of those journeymen who come in and give you a quarterback while you're looking for the real answer. I think while the Raiders are here in the top 10, they're not going to drop the opportunity, and I think they're going to take Will here. And I always avoid saying his last name because I don't know if it's Levis or Levis.
It's Levis.
But it's what?
It's Levis.
They're going to grab Levis right here, and they're going to let him sit behind Jimmy G for a year and develop him.
I think this is a great pick. This is the exact pick that I would make. I think it makes a ton of sense. As people on my channel may or may not know, I really, really like Levis. I have him as the number 2 quarterback on my board. And I love this kid, and I think that wherever he goes is going to be super dependent, and it sucks that he ends up in Vegas because I don't trust McDaniels at all when it comes to developing a quarterback or an offensive scheme. But sitting behind Jimmy for a year is going to help him, and if in worst case scenario Josh gets fired, that might help him with a new head coach in the future, because I think he's got all the talent in the world. The Atlanta Falcons are here at 8. And again, I'm going to do something that's a little bit off of the beaten path when it comes to this team. And a lot of people look at this team and look at what they're doing, and they say, where are they going to go? What's the best place for them to really benefit their team in the long term? And I think about, when we look at the offensive side of the ball, which is where I think a lot of people are looking, possibly thinking that this is where the first wide receiver is going to come off the board. I already did that with Jackson Smith-Njigba at 6. I'm really going to look at this and say, if you're the Falcons and both of these players have made it this far, specifically one, and you already have A.J. Terrell, an insanely good cornerback, and you struggled on defense. We all know that NFC South is really, really not a good division right now. How about you just have the best defense and the best secondary in that division? We all know they signed Jesse Bates III. They gave him a big contract. They have A.J. Terrell. I'm going to draft Christian Gonzalez, the number 1 corner on my board, an insane athlete here, and just have one of the better defenses. And it's just, they're going to have a really good safety duo. They're going to have a really good corner duo. And if this defensive line continues to produce in the way that we believe that they can, remember that they stole Calais Campbell from us. He went there and he got paid. They still have Grady Jarrett. They still have Caden Ellis. They have Arnold Ebiketie, their second-round pick from last year, who played really, really well. Let's just get a good corner, the best corner in the draft, in my opinion, here at number 8, and have the best defense in the NFC South.
I think Chicago comes in here and they have a tough decision because they definitely lost. They have a tradition for great defense, and they have an opportunity here to make their defense a lot better. And get a special player. It's all about philosophy. Do you want to make up for a weaker corner and not have the corner but pressure the quarterback so the quarterback doesn't have to cover as long, or do you want to go with the better cornerback and give your line more time to get to the quarterback? I'm going to go with what I believe fits better with Chicago's historically. I believe they want pass rush. They want to pressure and terrorize quarterbacks, especially in the cold in Chicago. So I say that they're going to take this opportunity and they're going to not be able to resist Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech. And they're going to just get themselves a nice elite edge, someone who's not much of a risk. I think that his athleticism and his ability, at worst, I don't think his floor is that low. He's going to be a really solid player to have on the team. And I think there's a potential there to be a 15 to 17, in his prime per year type of sack guy.
This is an interesting pick, to say the least, in my eyes. Because I would have gone offensive line. I think that's where a lot of people would have gone. But I think you're absolutely right. They've spent a lot of money and a lot of assets on the defense this offseason. They brought in TJ Edwards from the Eagles. They gave big money to Tremaine Edmonds to solidify their linebacker position. They drafted Kyler Gordon last year in the second round, and you hope that he has a good explosion, but they do need somebody to line up on the other side of DeMarcus Walker, their new signing, and Tyree Wilson is going to make that defense really competitive. And with how Tevin Jenkins played last year, yes, he played all of those snaps at guard. I get it. But you hope that maybe he has the ability to bump out, and you kind of bank on that. I think that's a good pick. Very, very interesting. Very interesting, to say the least. Now, the Eagles are here, and you shouldn't be allowed to pick in the top 10 if you just came from the Super Bowl. This pick should be forfeit. It is just unfair. But when you look at this team, and you and I had this conversation before free agency, we were on opposite sides of this. I was like, I would be surprised if the Philadelphia Eagles win more than 8 games. And that was going off of the basis of how are they going to keep everybody? They're not going to be able to keep everybody. That's insane. And guess what? They kept everybody. Everybody that they wanted stayed. They didn't lose a single like super key important piece. So you know what? I'm going to do something a little crazy here. And like the way that I look at this is I know a lot of people are going to be like, this is way too high for a player like this. But who cares? No one's calling up to trade to come up to 10, right? No one's doing any of that stuff. Go get the player that's going to help you win the most. It doesn't matter where they are. You're not going to be able to get him at your next pick, probably. I'm taking running back Bijan Robinson out of Texas at 10. They need help at the running back position. And so you can get a wide receiver later in the draft. You already have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. You're really looking for wide receiver 3, but you're a run-first offense. Help Jalen Hurts not have to run as much with his legs, and then boom. So Bijan is the pick at 10.
I think it's a great pick. Look, I mean, Bijan to me is the Breece Hall of this draft. He is the phenomenal, can't miss running back in my mind. I think he has not the potential just to be a really good NFL running back, but to be one of those special running backs. We all saw what Breece Hall with an average offensive line did for the Jets before he got hurt. He absolutely just completely changed the offense.
Transformed it.
And it transformed the offense. I mean, it was just unbelievable. We were capable of scoring a touchdown on any play. Home run hitter. Well, that's what Bijan Robinson is. And to throw him onto a team that's already stacked like the Eagles and have already accomplished what they've accomplished is absolutely terrifying to the rest of the NFL, and it's particularly the teams in their division. It is an absolute nightmare for them. Would they have loved to trade back a little and make that pick? Fine. But if they don't have a partner, there's nothing wrong with taking him at 10. No one's going to question it when this guy is one of the top running backs in the NFL and their offense is practically unstoppable.
Yep. I don't disagree. This is a screw the best player available model. We're trying to win now. This is a position of need. We're trying to win right now. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to win right now. And so the Tennessee Titans are up on the clock at 11. Where do you think you're going to go?
I think the Tennessee Titans, obviously we know what happened to their entire team is being rebuilt. They've totally stripped themselves offensively. And I think when you build that back up, because there's no magical quarterback left up there for them. So there's no looking in that there. You put that off to the next draft. There's going to be some great quarterbacks next year. And you rebuild and you start with the offensive line. Now, it's impossible to read the minds of a GM, and what they're thinking. I, as GM, am going to sit there and say, I'm going to go with someone that comes from a big school that's won up against elite talent, who I think probably might not have the highest ceiling of all the offensive tackles, but I can make an argument has the lowest floor. Someone who's definitely going to be a real piece to the offensive line. So I have Tennessee taking Paris Johnson here.
Interesting. The good thing, too, is that there is some familiarity there. Remember that Paris Johnson played on the same offensive line as Nicholas Petit-Frere, their third-round pick from last year, who's currently slotted to play the right tackle. And now you have a lot of flexibility because Paris Johnson can play on the interior of the offensive line. He can play on the exterior of the offensive line. And I think that you're right. I think that this makes a ton of sense. I think the only other direction I might have gone in would have been wide receiver. But with Jackson Smith-Njigba off the board, getting Quentin Johnston is kind of putting, like, it's two of the same wide receiver, like Treylon Burks and Quentin Johnston. And I think this is a little too high for any of the other wide receivers. I might have looked at Zay Flowers, honestly. I know I'm much, much higher than him than a lot of other teams are. But speaking of wide receiver. The Houston Texans are on the clock at number 12. And this is a very interesting place because they've revamped their offensive line in a big way by getting Shaq Mason in this year, by trading for him this offseason, but then also drafting Kenyon Green in the first round last year. And they already made their pick. They got Bryce Young, and they've got a couple of really interesting pieces there, but they did trade away Brandon Cooks, right? And so if you look at their wide receiver room right now, they don't have a true wide receiver one. And while I would love to give D'Amico Ryans a defensive player that can be just a stalwart on that team and eventually be the Sheldon Rankins replacement. Remember that Sheldon Rankins signed a 1-year deal. And while I would love for them to get Kalijah Kancey here at 13, that's the pick that I want to make. You got to help your rookie wide receiver. And I think this is where Quentin Johnson, the wide receiver out of TCU, is going to go. Get your short and small quarterback a tall, long, and quick target in the wide receiver game to partner with Mechie, who's coming off of, obviously he beat cancer, so he's coming back to the sport, which is a great story. And then Nico Collins, a really good weapon as well. And the Jets are on the board at 13. Where are they going?
Wow, it's really, there's this, the way this draft fell, when you look at the Jets' needs, this actually fell very, very well if we make the pick here. If there's no trade back here, this pretty
Hello?
much board that would be worthy. Starting
Hello?
stronger about the fact that it's the New York Jets.
Hey, you're cutting in and out right now. Oh, you're back. You're back full time.
Okay.
Start again.
Okay. From fresh?
Yeah, because you cut out right at the beginning and then you just got back. So what are you thinking here at 13? Go over that thought process again.
I'm thinking that Joe Douglas would be very excited right now because I guarantee you if at least one of his top 2 offensive tackles is obviously on the board right now. So there is a tackle that Joe Douglas would be salivating over right now. It's just a matter of who. But I also believe that Kalijah Kancey, the defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh, could be the surprise pick here as well.
Ring, ring. Ring, ring. The phone is ringing.
I better pick up the phone because it sounds like I might be offered something very tempting.
So this is the Washington Commanders. And they're looking at the board, and they know that the New York Jets are probably looking offensive line here. And they know that the New England Patriots are also probably looking offensive line here. And while, yes, all of the quarterbacks are off of the board and they would love the quarterbacks, they think that they've got enough pieces to win. They've got Gibson in the backfield. They've got McLaurin and Dotson and Samuel as the wide receiver. And what they need to do is they just need to protect Sam Howell. That's what they need to do. Sam Howell's got some legs, and they need an offensive lineman. Well, the guy that they're in love with is here, and they don't want the Jets to take a tackle, and then the Patriots to take a tackle, and then they're crap out of luck at 16. So they're going to try to trade up to the New York Jets position. And so here is what they are going to offer. Give me a second. So the Washington Commanders are going to offer up the 16th pick, obviously. And then to make up for the points loss and for you to fall back, they're going to give you pick 97, which is a 3rd round pick this year, and a 4th round pick next year to move back 3 spots so that they can get and come up and get their offensive lineman, preferably someone that can play on the interior of the offensive line as well as the exterior of the offensive line, and really just help solidify that O-line and those positions. What say you for that trade? You move back 3 spots, you gain a 3rd in this year's draft and a 4th in next year's draft.
I love the third rounder for this draft. Would love to get that pick back. I have a feeling we're going to lose one of our second round picks before the draft. So getting that third rounder would be really nice. There are three tackles left on the board, three offensive linemen on the board. I feel very comfortable with personally. So I know that one of the three will probably be there at 16 if I want to go that direction. Um, I am not thrilled with the fourth round pick for next year. I think that these first round picks moving up, um, Washington is probably going to be willing to part with a little more, knowing that there's probably a guy they love. They want to get in front of New England so they don't lose their guy. I'm going to push back and counter. I want a third for next year. So I want a third this year and a third for next year.
You know what? They say sure, they accept it. They'll do it. First round pick this year, a third round pick this year, and a third round pick next year for 13. And now the Commanders have come up and they're on the board at 13. Where are they going? They came up, and I gave you, as the owner, as Dan Schneider, about to be forced to sell the team for $6 billion. Yeah, that's with a B. What's the last move I make as the owner, as my GM, Jeremy?
I think the reason that you came up was to grab Peter Skoronski.
Yep.
And I say that because the bigger need for Washington probably is guard, but to have a guy that could play tackle, could play either one, that versatility in the future, which just fills the unknown. The future is always the unknown, but know that you're going to get an all-pro caliber guard that could potentially maybe be a Pro Bowl tackle in the future if you need him there. I think that's what would have motivated Washington to part with two third-round picks. It's to get Peter Skoronski.
Yep, I agree. It makes too much sense on that front when it comes to the whole situation with what Washington needs to do. I think Washington needs to try to be competitive in the division, and they know that they've got the weakest quarterback right now, and so they got to make up for weak quarterback play with strong play everywhere else. And so I think, this is exactly who I came up for, because you're totally right. He can play guard. I think he can play center at the next level. That's what he was recruited out of high school to do. I think he can play tackle, even though some GMs might not do it. And having this is a type of player that's worth trading up for. To get your own Elijah Vera Tucker, we saw what he can do for our team. Every team should be finding a guy that fits that mold, and that's exactly what Peter Skoronski fits. The New England Patriots are here at 14, and they have no idea why they came up. Why did Washington come up? The Jets probably weren't looking at Peter Skoronski because they believe Joe Douglas more than likely believes that he's a guard at the next level, and they don't need a guard. We just signed Riley Reiff as in the New England Patriots to be our right tackle of the future, and we drafted Cole Strange last year. And we've got a relatively solid offensive line everywhere else. You know what? I was never looking at the tackle here at 14 if I'm New England. I think that they're looking at the defensive side of the ball. This is Bill Belichick trying to reestablish himself as one of the best defensive coaches in the NFL. And for you to do that at a high enough level, you need to have talent on the outside, something that they've always done. So they're going to take the cornerback out of Illinois, Devin Witherspoon. If anyone's going to be able to make a sub 185-pound corner work at the next level, it's going to be Bill Belichick. And with how much man coverage they run, Devin Witherspoon, I think, is going to be able to work in a man coverage heavy zone, like a man heavy scheme like New England does. And I think that this is the pick that they make. Now you have the Green Bay Packers at 15. This is the Green Bay Packers post Aaron Rodgers. The Jordan Love era begins. And Gutekunst is probably looking to make his team better, to help his rookie quarterback. Or is he? What are you doing here at 15?
I think that Green Bay definitely, especially after just losing Rodgers, they want their quarterback to be in a position to succeed. They don't want to be embarrassed and have him, not have the help he needs and really have the team fall apart. I think it's not that they can't use some help on defense. They could definitely use a safety here. So it's not like Brian Branch wouldn't be very tempting. because it would be great for them to throw a guy like that onto their team. But I'm going to say that they are going to give their quarterback a new best friend, and that best friend is going to be Dalton Kincaid from Utah. They're just going to give him a great explosive tight end to go with the young receivers and start with this nice, fresh, young, exciting offense with exciting players.
Yep. I agree. I think it makes a ton of sense, like at every facet of the thing. You got to make sure that you're giving your guy as much help as possible. And yeah, the defense does need help, but we talked about this before. They're going to have two second round picks because of the Aaron Rodgers trade. And they're going to be really close together. They're probably going to have 43 and 45. And they can go get an edge at 43 or 45. They can get a linebacker at 43 or 45. They can get safety at 43 or 45. And hell, they could probably still even get a wide receiver at 43 or 45. This gives them a bunch of flexibility. The Jets are on the board at 16, and this kind of ruins the idea of the whole thing. So here's what I'm going to do, Jeremy. I'm going to steal the Eagles pick, the 30 pick, right? That normally... No, I would have I'm going to steal the Kansas City Chiefs pick, the 31 pick, so that you can make the Jets pick here at 16. I don't want to be making the Jets pick. So I'm taking 31 from you. So I go 30-31 so that you can go 15-16. What are the Jets doing here at 16?
Ideally, the Jets would love to trade down to Tampa to 19. Ideally. But I would need you to broker the decision.
I don't think they're coming up. There's no one here right now, at least for the teams that I own. And when I look at the board and how it's fallen, there is not a player at any of these positions that I look at and I go, you know what? I'm super concerned about this. I think, or I want to come up. So for me, none of the even numbered teams are coming up, at least right now. If there's an odd numbered team that wants to come up, that's up to you. But I don't see any of my teams coming up for any of these players.
Okay, then. Okay. So this could be controversial because this is not going to go the way a lot of people might want it to go. A lot of people think we need to take a tackle here, and with the extra third round pick, I'm not so sure of that. Because I don't think you have to address tackle with a first round pick. I think a lot of people think the only way to address positions is in the first round, and it's true. We have a third round pick now. To me, that could be center because I believe there'll be opportunities to get center now, which gives me the opportunity to think second round I can get my tackle. On Jones, Darnell Wright. There's going to be guys there, guys that I could develop while I have Dwayne Brown and Becton with Max Mitchell, holding down the fort at tackles. Don't think I necessarily need to go first round here. JD is a best player on the board guy, and I think that he cannot sit there any longer in this position and not run to the podium and say, we will take Calijah Kancey and absolutely terrorize the opposing offense with Quinnen Williams and Calijah Kancey.
I totally agree here. After losing out on Fletcher Cox and Calais Campbell, two really, really big name defensive tackles, it's the biggest position of need, and Calijah Kancey has Aaron Donald written all over him. And so I love this pick. Now, you're supposed to have the Pittsburgh Steelers pick, so here's what I'm going to give you back Kansas City, and I'm just going to take Pittsburgh, and this should put us, you did two picks back-to-back, 15-16, I'll do 17-18, and then everything will go back to normal. So the Steelers are on the board here at 17, and the way that I look at this is they would have loved if a Devin Witherspoon or one of those guys made it. They might also be looking at the offensive line. I really, really like taking an offensive lineman here. You got to help your rookie or second-year quarterback. And you know what? That's actually where I'm going to go. I think you got to help your rookie quarterback here. I think that they are higher on Dan Moore Jr. than a lot of other teams or a lot of other guys are. But you know what? Chukwuma Okafor has been below average for way too long. Let's go get ourselves a right tackle. And a lot of people are going to be really surprised with this pick, but I am going to be taking Darnell Wright here. He is a true right tackle in this position. And that's going to be the pick. I think he's going to sneak into the first round. He's going to start there. He's a mammoth of a human being. So I have the Pittsburgh Steelers taking Darnell Wright at 17. And then at 18, with the Lions are back up on the board. Remember that they went wide receiver earlier in this draft. And the idea was, let's just get better at a position where we're really, really good. And now let's address the defensive side of the ball. And while they would have loved to have a guy like Kalijah Kancey fall to here, which is probably who they were banking on being here, this is no consolation prize. They're still going to get one of my favorite players in this draft and partner him with their first-round pick from last year in Aiden Hutchinson. And they're going to get the edge out of Iowa, Lucas Van Ness. I think he is just an insane athlete, and it was between him and Joey Porter, and I couldn't separate the two. And so I said, you know what? What's the best way to affect the offensive side of the ball is to hit the quarterback. So let's go hit the quarterback with Lucas Van Ness.
Yeah, I love it. That's a great pick. It's just the perfect player for Pittsburgh. It's what they're known for, pressuring.
No,
and every time they have a star player at edge, before that guy starts to get out of his prime, they get the next one ramped up, right? They bring in that next guy. They always have, it's like they come in pairs. So I think it's a great pick for Pittsburgh.
This is the Lions pick. The Lions took Lucas Van Ness. Pittsburgh took Darnell Wright.
Sorry, I don't know why I have that screwed up. Okay,
it's fine.
Sorry. Well, the Lions certainly need that pick because they definitely need the help on defense. So,
yep.
And going back to Pittsburgh, I think that's still a solid pick for them to go for offensive line. So, I also agree that Darnell Wright is highly underrated and ranked way too low. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if he went top 20.
You're on the board with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is an enigma wrapped in a mystery, wrapped in a burrito with mystery sauce on it. I have no idea what Tampa's going to do here because they kind of need everything.
Yeah, they I actually think that, let me catch up here so I see where we're up to because that's why I got messed up. I think that Tampa Bay, given the situation, given the board, if I am Tampa Bay, they have obviously a defensive-minded coach. To me, it's going to be between two positions. There's definitely a chance they can go tight end here. It definitely wouldn't be out of the question, but I do think that it's a strong draft with tight end. They can get that later. I think what they're going to do is because they can address that later, they're going to take the best available player. They definitely could use Brian Branch. A safety would not hurt them in any way. So I say Tampa Bay goes for Brian Branch. He can play in the box. When he's in coverage, he can do that too. But he's going to be a playmaker for them. Tackles behind the line of scrimmage. He's going to create fumbles. He's going to help create turnovers. I just love me some Brian Branch. So I think Tampa Bay is just the perfect position to grab him here.
Very, very interesting. I think that this is a good spot. They need the safety help for sure, obviously. And Brian Branch immediately comes in and plays the strong safety role very, very well. I would have probably gone offensive line here if this was me, but this is also a really good pick. Brian Branch is the only other player in this draft class that I think has true elite potential outside of Jalen Carter. And speaking of Jalen Carter, the team that took him at number 5 is back on the board with the Seattle Seahawks. And ironically, they're going to take his teammate at 20 here in Nolan Smith, double dipping on the defensive line, they are solid on the offensive side of the ball. They don't need help on the offensive side of the ball in the first round. What they really need is to solidify that defensive line. Now, if Brian Branch was here, I would have taken Brian Branch. I talked about this in my last week's mock draft with Dom, but to change it up, and obviously because you took him, I'm not going to take the safety, but they brought back Bobby Wagner. Let's just solidify that defensive line. Nolan Smith, 2 Georgia boys going to Seattle, moving across the country. Teammates get to stay teammates. You're on the clock with the LA Chargers at 21. Where are they going?
That is just absolutely, I got to say, that's absolutely terrifying. Nolan Smith with Pete Carroll as a coach, he loves defense, man. And those guys play hard. And he's a jet. He's super fast. San Diego's interesting. Man, do they just underperform every year, don't they? They seem to have so much more talent than what their record shows. Keenan Allen getting really old. Unfortunately, this is not the best draft for wide receiver. Although I think that they're very tempting. They definitely might be looking at Zay Flowers.
I am.
That definitely might be the right pick for them. I think when you have a young quarterback like that, he's running out of time to be on the cheap. Eventually, they're going to have to start paying Justin Herbert. It's time to give him some weapons, and it's time to put some young blood there. And I think that Zay Flowers could be the future WR1 and definitely, he might not be as a WR1 year one going in there, but I certainly think he can make an impact right off the bat. So I say San Diego's thinking we want to score more points, and they're going to go for Zay Flowers here at wide receiver.
Yep, this is the pick that I would make. It's the Bengals model, right? Williams and Allen, while they are excellent wide receivers, have a hard time staying on the field. And when they eventually and inevitably get hurt, it's hard to look at it and say, okay, we're going to trust Trey Palmer. And this is not me being anti-Palmer. Josh Palmer, sorry, not Trey Palmer. Josh is great, but he can't do it by himself. And getting a guy like Zay Flowers, it's again, go just help out your young quarterback. You're going to have to pay him next year. That's the reality. He's up for a contract next year. And you can start negotiating his contract this year. So if that's going to be the case, you're going to pay him. Get him your guy, especially knowing that the Baltimore Ravens are up on the clock, and they're here at 22, and they still don't know what's going to happen here. They have no idea what's happening with Lamar Jackson. Is he going to be playing for the team? Is he going to come back? Is he not going to come back? I think you have to go under the assumption that he is coming back. But signing Nelson Aguilar isn't that big of a deal. Bateman has a hard time staying healthy. He missed a ton of time last year. Duvernay is a nice special teams kind of option, but they need a true option at wide receiver, and they're all gone. Zay Flowers is gone, and he would have been the pick that I think that they would have wanted to make. And now you're looking at specialists and those things, but you need to get another wide receiver in the room, and I think they're going to have a hard time passing up on a guy like Jordan Addison, the wide receiver out of USC, and so that's the pick that I'm going to make. The guy is a speed demon. He's got great wheels on him. He's quick as well, and he's got a relatively good route tree on him. You worry about his size when it translates to the next level, but you keep seeing wide receivers that are slender working at the next level. Maybe Jordan Addison is the next one to do that and follow that mold. The Minnesota Vikings are up on the clock at 23. Where are they going?
Well, I see really there's a couple of choices for them. I think they would be I wouldn't be shocked at all if they went for Brian Breesy here and they went for defensive tackle. Wouldn't shock me at all. But I think that he slipped enough, and I think that someone's going to step up and say, this guy's too talented to still be here. The value's too good to pass up on. And they're going to grab Devon Witherspoon and get them and hope that they get themselves a solid CB1. I mean, I don't think there's any debate that
Witherspoon's gone. Witherspoon went to the Patriots.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know why I didn't get him off the board here. Okay. Let's start over.
If they're gonna take a corner, a guy that I think is just as good would be Joey Porter Jr.
Yeah, well, he was going to be my
Yeah.
if he went with the next pick. So let me start over. All right. So I think that Minnesota has really, I think, it's very evident. If I'm Minnesota right now, I need defense.
Yeah.
I need defense, and there's two guys that stick out to me. Um, before they fall, I mean, I have an opportunity to get great value here at cornerback. It's a great draft for cornerback. There's always Brian Breesy, which wouldn't shock me, but I think in this situation, because again, you can get defensive tackles in the later rounds, but it's much harder to get good solid cornerbacks. And I don't think you're going to have a guy like Joey Porter available later. So I think they're going to go to Penn State, grab the cornerback Joey Porter, and he's going to be a Minnesota Viking.
Yep. I think this makes a ton of sense too. They did just lose their corner, the older gentleman. I forget his name. Makes a ton of sense that that's what they're going to do, and that's what I would do too. I think Joey Porter Jr. or even Deonte Banks out of Maryland would have been a great pick here. Now, the Jacksonville Jaguars are up on the board, and there's a couple of ways that they can go, and I'm really looking at this team and I'm going, okay, there are two options for me here on the board that I'm really seriously considering. And we got to kind of get Josh Allen a running mate. I know that we took Walker, Trayvon Walker last year, and you know what? He's a freak athlete. But we've got to build up that defense. But I'm looking at it and I'm going, you know what? We got an offensive-minded head coach. We're an offensive-minded team. Let's protect what appears to be our franchise quarterback. I'm going to go off the beaten path here. I'm going to make a pick that's going to get a lot of Jets fans upset with me. But I'm going to take John Michael Schmitz, the center out of Minnesota, here at 24. They desperately need to improve the offensive line, specifically at the center. They have Scherf, they have Little, they have Robinson. They've got good players on the offensive line, but they had one of the worst centers in the draft in the league last year. It really affected their ability. You know, you're getting Ridley back. You have Kirk. You've got Jones. You got Lawrence has Etienne in the backfield. Let's just protect Lawrence and let's go be competitive in an AFC South that's really, really weak. And let's go to the playoffs.
I think the Giants are going to be very disappointed right now.
Yep.
They're going to be brokenhearted because I think they would have loved that pick. I don't think they're going to jump and take the next best center available. I don't. I think they're going to change direction. I think they're going to go for a center now that's the only guy that they would have used a first round pick on.
Yep.
And now they're going to steer directions, and their backup plan will be a second or third round pick for center. There are some guys that they probably like and have on their board in their backup plan. They're not going to be thrilled with this pick. I don't know if Giant fans are going to love it, but I think that the Giants outside of center really want and need to give some weapons to their quarterback, who they just overpaid. You're not going to get the improvement from Danny Dimes unless you give him more weapons. So I think they're going to reach here, and they're going to put their faith and hope that Josh Downs is going to be that weapon. And I have the Giants taking Josh Downs, wide receiver from North Carolina.
This is a super interesting pick. Not that it's a bad pick. It makes a ton of sense, and the logic of what you're saying makes a ton of sense as well. But for me, I would have been interested in looking at maybe Michael Mayer in this position. And we know that they just traded for Darren Waller, and he is one of the best tight ends in football. But if you can run a lot of 22 personnel or 12 personnel and having two tight end sets, not only is it going to help Danny Dimes be more protected, but it's going to give him more underneath, and it's also going to help Saquon, who you only have for 1 year as of right now because you franchise tagged him. But Josh Downs is a super interesting pick. I love that pick. The Cowboys are on the clock. And the Cowboys always want to go wide receiver, but they traded for Brandon Cooks. They've got CD. They've got Gallup. And the place that they really need help is on the defensive line. Lawrence and Parsons can't do it alone, and I think this is the farthest that you're going to see Brian Bressie probably go. And I think this makes a ton of sense. Brian Bressie is going to be my pick here for the Cowboys at 26. Line him up there right next to Lawrence up the middle and really just try to get this defense to really perform at the level that they need it to. The Cowboys have been so close to being a really good team for a long time, and they just need to keep addressing these holes because you've got a limited quarterback in Dak Prescott, and you've got to try to help him by stopping other teams from scoring points. Now it's your turn to help one of our division rivals. I had to help the New England Patriots. Now you got to help the Bills. What are the Bills going to do here at 27?
I think the Bills are going to go and turn towards the cornerback from Maryland, Deonte Banks, to bulk up that secondary.
Yeah, I think so too. They're right now are playing a couple of they're playing a couple of interesting kind of corner setups and things like that. And we saw that their injuries last year, especially to the defensive back room, really affected their team in the long term. And so I love this pick. Tre'Davious White's not getting any younger, and Jackson wasn't great. And who was their first round pick from last year? I forget his name. The kid out of Florida. He has some potential, and I liked him a lot last year. Kaiir Elam. But again, that defense is what that team is built on, and getting better at defense is always going to be a good thing for them. The Cincinnati Bengals are up on the clock here, and the Bengals were really hoping that Bijan Robinson made it this far, because then they could have drafted Bijan Robinson and cut Joe Mixon and cut bait and saved $10 million. But that's not an option. But what is an option is offensive line. Anton Harrison is here. Broderick Jones is here. And they did just pay a ton of money to Orlando Brown Jr. But La'el Collins still has his issues with his knee. I'm pretty sure he tore his ACL at the end of the year. Joe Burrow is still running for his life. And this is a Joe Douglas quote that he said last year, right? You're one injury away from a position of strength being a position of need. And I think more than anything, they need to solidify and secure Joe Burrow's future at the offensive line. And so they're going to take a project tackle here a little bit, but has the highest upside. And they're going to take Broderick Jones at 28.
That's a great get at 28, I got to say.
Oh, yeah. The fact that he fell this far honestly and truthfully surprises me. But here he is. Here we are.
Yeah, I thought they may have went for Mike Mayer.
I seriously considered it. I looked at it and I said, imagine Michael Mayer on that team. Woo!
Crazy.
But you can't get the ball to Mayer if Burrow is running for his life consistently. Got to protect Burrow. And this is a super deep tight end class. You can get Darnell Washington in the second. You can do a bunch of different things. There's a ton of good tight ends. Go get the tackle.
Yeah.
The New Orleans Saints with newly acquired quarterback Derek Carr. What are they doing here at 29?
I think it's an easy pick for them. I do. I think that they're going to be really excited he's on the board, and they're going to come up and just take what some people think of the best guard in the draft. They're going to go to Florida and say, we're going to take Cyrus Torrance and just help solidify the offensive line and stick in a guard that they're hoping is going to play, a good 7 to 12 years there.
I love this pick. They need help on the interior of the offensive line. Cyrus Torrance is an interesting fit there. Cyrus Torrance is very scheme specific when you look at, the like what he can do at the next level. But when you have a guy that's just that athletic and that good, he looks like he was built in a lab to play guard. And so I love that pick. I think that's a great pick. The Eagles are back up on the board at 30, and at 10 they took a luxury pick. At 10 they said, cool. We took, Bijan Robinson, and that's a pick that's going to help us out and all of that. But I think they're going to go and this point, it's about just getting depth and or like this is a difficult pick for me because I believe last year they took the interior defensive lineman out of Georgia, correct? They took
Yeah,
Jordan Davis.
Davis, yeah, he's
and
good.
so he's the third defensive tackle right now behind like Williams and Cox. They have Reddick and Sweat, and they're not that old to be able to say, like, you know what, we're looking or we need another edge. But, and they have Brandon Graham. I forgot about that. Oh, this is such a difficult pick. But you know what? You got a luxury pick on the offensive side of the ball on Bijan Robinson. This is the farthest Myles Murphy falls. Myles Murphy out of Clemson is going to be the pick for me in my eyes. Now you have 4, not 3, but 4 studs in that edge room. Graham's not getting any younger. Keeping Reddick and Sweat here long term is going to be difficult. They're both going to ask for a ton of money. This is too soon to take a linebacker in my eyes. So you just take the edge. And with the last pick in the draft, the Kansas City Chiefs are on the board. Make Kansas City Live proud. Jeremy, what are we doing here at 31?
Well, I think Kansas City, if it was a stronger draft in wide receiver, I wouldn't rule it out at all. But I don't think there's anyone worthy of this pick for Kansas City at wide receiver. I just don't. Nope. I don't think it would be a smart move for them. Nope. I think that they should focus on a defensive tackle. And the best defensive tackle that I think is left on this board for them to take to solidify the interior of their defensive line would be Mazi Smith out of Michigan.
Mazi Smith sneaks into the first round. Interesting pick. I would have gone offensive line. That would have been the Anton Harrison pick for me. But I do love this pick when it comes to the players and everyone that they got. And here is the first round mock draft with Jeremy of Jets Chaos. Guys, let us know in the comment section below, what do you think of our picks? What do you think about our strategies and our evaluations of these teams? Come back next week. We're going to have a new guest doing another first round mock draft. Jeremy's information is going to be in the description below, both the Jets Chaos channel and the Cravat Attack channel, the food review channel. It's so much fun. I love watching those videos, especially because we get to see more of not just like, I see enough of you on Jets Chaos. Seeing your brothers is a good thing over there. I love seeing them. Jeremy, tell the people what they want to hear. Is there anything specific that you want to let them know about?
Well, you kind of did a great job for me, but I'll just say, my regular show, my staple show, I can always promise is on Wednesday night, 10 o'clock Eastern. You'll always have the Wacky Wednesday show. We're always there to talk Jets. We always have great guests, including Tigo. My co-host, Adam, Watu-K99, is always with us. And we get a whole bunch of others, and we always have a great time. And then, we're doing the food reviews. Me and my 2 brothers, the 3 of us, every day is a new video on Cravat Attack.
Yep. It's a fun time, guys. Go and hit the subscribe button down there to help. Hey, if you like this content, hit the like button. It's a great way to show it. Don't forget to leave your sacrifice to the algorithm gods in the comment section below. And last but not least, go Jets. Go Jets.